You've felt it. That moment when something doesn't add up. When their words say one thing, but your nervous system screams another. When you walk away from a conversation feeling drained, confused, used, and you can't explain why. They smiled. They were charming. They said all the right things. But something was missing. Something crucial. Something human. You dismissed it. You told yourself you were being paranoid, judgmental, too sensitive. After all, they seem so successful, so confident, so put together. Surely you're the problem. Surely you're overthinking it. No. What you sensed was real. What your body registered was accurate. What your instincts tried to tell you before your mind rationalized it away was the truth. You were in the presence of something predatory. Here's the pattern you haven't been taught to see. These people don't announce themselves. They don't wear signs. They don't confess their nature in the first meeting or the 10th. They blend. They adapt. They mirror whatever you need them to be until they've secured access to what they want from you. Your energy, your resources, your reputation, your sanity. And here's the conspiracy no one discusses. Modern psychology has identified 3 distinct personality types that operate this way, not as villains in movies, as colleagues in your office, as partners in your bed, as friends at your table. The Dark Triad, the narcissist. Who needs you to worship them to feel real? The Machiavellian, who sees every interaction as a chess game to win. The psychopath, who experiences you as an object, not a person. These aren't insults. These are clinical profiles, specific patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that modern psychology has mapped with precision. And once you understand the architecture of each type, you'll see them everywhere. In positions of power, in intimate relationships, in social circles. Hiding in plain sight, behind competence, charm, and social intelligence. The Dark Triad represents approximately 1 to 6% of the population, depending on the type and severity. That means, in a room of 50 people, statistically, 1 to 3 of them are operating from one of these 3 psychological profiles. And they're drawn to specific types of people: the empathetic, the successful, the naive, the givers, those who trust easily and doubt themselves quickly. Are you starting to understand why certain relationships felt like warfare? Psychologist Delroy Paulhus, who coined the term Dark Triad in 2002, wrote, "These 3 personalities share a common core of callousness, manipulation, and self-promotion. Yet each achieves these ends through different strategies." That's the field intelligence you need, not the moral judgment, not the anger. The tactical awareness that these patterns exist. They're predictable, and you can learn to identify them before they destroy something you care about. In the next 20 minutes, we're not learning to heal them. We're learning to see them, to recognize their signatures in the wild, to protect what matters. To stop confusing pathology with personality. This is your field guide to the 3 most dangerous psychological profiles in your daily life. And by the end, you'll never look at charm the same way again. Start here. The narcissist doesn't experience you as a separate person. To them, you exist as an extension of their own self-image, a mirror, a prop, a supporting character in the only story that matters, which is their story. Modern psychology defines narcissistic personality disorder through 9 specific criteria, but in the field, in your life, you'll recognize them through 3 core patterns. Pattern 1, the grandiosity gap. Watch what happens when reality contradicts their self-image. They tell you they're exceptional at something. The best salesperson, the most talented artist, the most desirable partner. They don't say this casually. They say it with conviction, with evidence carefully curated to support the narrative. But then you witness their actual performance. It's good, sometimes very good, but it's not exceptional. It's not transcendent. It's human. And that gap between their claimed superiority and their actual capability, that's the signature. The non-narcissist responds to feedback with curiosity. What could I improve? The narcissist responds with rage. You don't understand my vision. You're threatened by my success. You're too limited to appreciate my talent. The criticism isn't processed as information. It's experienced as annihilation. Because their entire psychological structure is built on the foundation of being special, remove that belief, and the self collapses. Pattern 2, the empathy desert. They can't feel what you feel. This is crucial. The narcissist can perform empathy brilliantly. They've learned the words, the facial expressions, the timing. They know when to say, "That must be so hard for you," with the perfect tone of concern. But watch what happens next. Within 60 seconds, maybe less, the conversation shifts back to them, to their experience, to their story, to how what you're going through reminds them of something they went through, which was obviously worse. You just told them about your mother's cancer diagnosis. They're talking about their struggle with a difficult colleague. The narcissist experiences your pain as set dressing in their drama. Interesting for a moment, quickly boring, ultimately irrelevant unless it serves their narrative. Clinical research by psychologist W. Keith Campbell reveals that narcissists show significantly reduced activation in the brain regions associated with emotional empathy. It's not that they choose not to care. Their neural architecture doesn't generate the response. Your suffering doesn't register as real to them. Pattern 3, the relationship roller coaster. They move fast, intense eye contact, deep conversations, future planning in week 2. You've never felt so seen, so understood, so chosen. This is called love bombing, and it's not love. It's a psychological technique. The narcissist needs you inflated, worshipping, dependent, because your adoration feeds something in them that can't be satisfied from within. You become their external validation source, their narcissistic supply, and you feel it, that strange sensation of being consumed, of existing to reflect their greatness back to them. Then, without warning, the withdrawal begins. They're busy, distracted, critical, cold. You're suddenly inadequate, too needy, too emotional, too much. What changed? You became real. You showed a need. You expressed a boundary. You revealed a flaw. And the moment you stopped being a perfect mirror, you became useless. The narcissist doesn't have relationships. They have arrangements. And when you stop serving the arrangement, you're discarded without remorse. Different architecture, same outcome. Where the narcissist needs worship, the Machiavellian needs control. Where the narcissist is transparent in their need for attention, the Machiavellian is invisible. They're the strategist, the long game player, the person who thinks 3 moves ahead while you're still processing move 1. Named after the Italian philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote about power acquisition without moral constraint, the Machiavellian personality operates from a simple worldview. Every interaction is transactional. Every person is a resource. Every relationship is leverage. Pattern 1. The strategic charm. They're never obviously manipulative. That would be inefficient. Instead, they invest. They learn what you value, what you fear, what you need. They ask questions. They listen carefully. They remember details. You think you're building friendship. They're building files. The Machiavellian collects information the way a general studies terrain. Not for connection, for advantage. And when they need something, when the moment arrives, they'll use that information with surgical precision. They'll frame their request in terms of what matters to you. They'll make you feel like helping them serves your interests. You won't realize you've been maneuvered until months later, when you're exhausted, depleted, and wondering how you ended up doing so much for someone who never seems to reciprocate. Psychologist Richard Christie, who developed the Mach 4 scale to measure Machiavellian traits, found that high scorers consistently outperform others in zero-sum games, not because they're smarter, because they're willing to exploit where others cooperate. Pattern 2. The moral flexibility. The Machiavellian doesn't believe in absolute right or wrong. They believe in effective or ineffective. They'll tell you they value honesty. Then they'll lie smoothly when lying serves their purpose. They'll praise loyalty. Then they'll betray without hesitation when the math changes. And here's what makes them so difficult to identify. They're often right about the game. They see through social performances. They recognize that most people operate through unspoken agendas. They're not wrong that the world is transactional. But where healthy cynicism creates boundaries, Machiavellian cynicism creates predation. They don't just see the game. They exploit it. They don't just protect themselves from manipulation. They become master manipulators. Pattern 3. The alliance architecture. The Machiavellian never acts alone when they can build a coalition. Watch how they navigate group dynamics. They identify power structures immediately. They forge strategic alliances. They isolate threats. They control information flow. If there's conflict, they're never the visible aggressor. They're the concerned third party, the mediator, the voice of reason. But behind the scenes, they're orchestrating. They turn people against each other without anyone recognizing their role. They create situations where others fight their battles. They position themselves as indispensable while ensuring potential rivals remain divided. Research by psychologist Ki-Byung Lee shows that Machiavellians score high on strategic intelligence, but low on emotional warmth. They understand people, they just don't care about people. You're a resource, and resources are managed, not cherished. Now we enter different territory. The narcissist feels too much about themselves. The Machiavellian thinks too much about strategy. But the psychopath doesn't feel at all, not in the way you understand feeling. This is the most misunderstood profile of the three, because the word psychopath has been corrupted by media. You imagine serial killers, violent criminals, obvious monsters. But clinical psychopathy exists on a spectrum, and most psychopaths aren't in prison. They're in boardrooms, in hospitals, in your life. Modern psychology, particularly the work of Dr. Robert Hare and his psychopathy checklist, identifies psychopathy through 20 distinct traits. But in the field, you'll recognize them through 3 core absences. Absence 1. Emotional resonance. The narcissist fakes empathy to maintain their image. The Machiavellian simulates empathy as strategy. But the psychopath doesn't even understand why empathy would be necessary. Tell them you're in pain. Watch their eyes. There's nothing behind them. Not cruelty, not concern, just blank calculation. Like you told a computer about your feelings and it's processing the information for relevant data. They'll respond. They've learned the appropriate words, but the response is hollow, mechanical, like a translation from a language they don't actually speak. You feel it as cold, as wrong, as fundamentally inhuman. Because at the neurological level, psychopaths show reduced activity in brain regions associated with fear, anxiety, and emotional processing. Dr. Hare's research using fMRI scans reveals that when psychopaths view images of people in distress, their amygdala barely activates. Your pain doesn't trigger their discomfort. It doesn't generate concern. It generates nothing. Absence 2. Conscience. The psychopath doesn't experience guilt or shame, not because they've suppressed it, because the mechanism doesn't exist. They can tell you about right and wrong. They understand the social contract intellectually, but they don't feel bound by it. If they hurt you and it serves their purpose, they'll do it, not with hesitation, not with justification, with indifference. And afterwards, no remorse, no guilt, no second thoughts. You're waiting for the apology that will never come. You're looking for the conscience that was never installed. This is different from the Machiavellians' moral flexibility. The Machiavellian knows they're transgressing. They just don't care because the ends justify the means. The psychopath doesn't even register transgression. There are no moral guardrails to cross. There's just action and consequence, and they're exceptionally good at avoiding consequence. Absence 3. Authentic attachment. The psychopath can't bond. Not truly. They form connections the way you'd form a business relationship. Transactional, purpose-driven, temporary. They can perform love brilliantly, better than the narcissist, actually, because they're not distracted by their own neediness. They can give you their full attention. They can be charming, engaging, attentive, but beneath the performance, nothing. You're interchangeable, replaceable, a means to an end. When they're done with you, they walk away without looking back. No lingering feelings, no nostalgia, no pain. Psychologist Kevin Dutton's research into successful psychopaths reveals they're overrepresented in fields requiring emotional detachment: surgery, law, journalism, law enforcement, and executive leadership. Not because these fields attract monsters, because these fields reward the ability to make ruthless decisions without emotional interference. The psychopath experiences you as furniture, useful when needed, irrelevant when not. Here's where it gets dangerous. The Dark Triad isn't 3 separate boxes. It's 3 overlapping traits that exist in varying combinations. A person can score high on narcissism without psychopathy, high on Machiavellianism without narcissism, or they can embody all 3. When the traits converge, you're dealing with what psychologists call a Dark Triad core personality. And these individuals are statistically overrepresented in positions of power. Why? Because the Dark Triad traits, when combined with intelligence and social skill, create a competitive advantage in systems that reward ruthlessness over ethics. The narcissist's grandiosity provides the confidence to pursue power. The Machiavellian strategic thinking provides the methodology to acquire it. And the psychopath's lack of conscience removes the hesitation that stops others. Research by psychologist Peter Jonassen reveals that Dark Triad individuals pursue what he calls a fast life strategy: short-term mating, resource extraction, immediate gratification. Risk-taking, without fear of consequences. They're not building legacy. They're maximizing exploitation before the system catches them. And they succeed far more often than we'd like to admit. The CEO who destroys companies for short-term profit, the politician who betrays every promise, the romantic partner who cycles through relationships leaving destruction in their wake. Not broken, not damaged, functioning exactly as their psychology dictates. Theory is useless without application. So here's your practical field guide. 6 situations where Dark Triad traits reveal themselves. Situation 1. When they're criticized. The narcissist rages. The Machiavellian redirects. The psychopath smiles. Watch carefully. Criticism is kryptonite to pathology. It forces the mask to slip. Situation 2. When someone else succeeds. The narcissist feels threatened. The Machiavellian starts calculating how to use it. The psychopath feels nothing. Dark Triad individuals can't celebrate others authentically. Your success is either their wound or your weakness. Situation 3. When they're caught in a lie. The narcissist justifies. The Machiavellian reframes. The psychopath escalates with a bigger lie. None of them apologize. None of them take responsibility. They weaponize your doubt against you. Situation 4. When you set a boundary. The narcissist makes it about how you're rejecting them. The Machiavellian makes it about how you're being unreasonable. The psychopath ignores it entirely. Healthy people respect boundaries. Dark Triad personalities see boundaries as obstacles to remove. Situation 5. When they want something from you. The narcissist demands it as their due. The Machiavellian maneuvers you into offering it. The psychopath takes it with or without permission. Watch how they pursue objectives. The method reveals the psychology. Situation 6. When you're no longer useful, the narcissist discards you with contempt. The Machiavellian phases you out strategically. The psychopath disappears without explanation. Your years of relationship mean nothing when you stop serving their purpose. These aren't personality conflicts. These are diagnostic patterns. And once you know what to look for, you'll see them with painful clarity. So what now? Now you know. Now you see. Now you understand that these patterns aren't personal failures or communication breakdowns or fixable relationship problems. They're psychological architecture. And you don't negotiate with architecture. You recognize it and you adjust your approach accordingly. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You stop trying to get empathy from people who can't generate it. You stop seeking fairness from people who don't believe in it. You stop waiting for conscience to activate in people who don't possess it. You protect what matters. Your energy, your resources, your peace. Because here's the truth that modern psychology confirms. Dark Triad traits are remarkably stable over time. They don't mature out of them. Therapy rarely helps because they don't see themselves as the problem. They see you as the problem for not accepting their behavior. Your responsibility isn't to fix them. Your responsibility is to not become their supply, not their narcissistic supply, not their strategic asset, not their discardable resource. And yes, this knowledge is heavy. Yes, it will change how you see people. Yes, it will make certain relationships impossible to continue. Good. Better to be alone with your awareness than surrounded by predators you refuse to recognize. The Dark Triad thrives in environments where people are taught that everyone deserves trust, that skepticism is cynicism, that pattern recognition is judgment. But pattern recognition isn't judgment, it's survival intelligence. Dr. Robert Hare, the world's leading expert on psychopathy, wrote, "Not all psychopaths are criminals, and not all criminals are psychopaths. But if you're dealing with a psychopath, you need to know what you're dealing with." The same applies to the entire Dark Triad. You need to know. You need to see. You need to trust what your nervous system has been trying to tell you all along. That something is wrong. That someone is dangerous. That the charm is performance and the performance is predation. You weren't being paranoid. You were being perceptive. Welcome to the 1 to 6% of the population who now sees clearly, who recognizes the signatures, who understands that not everyone is safe just because they're human. Some people aren't broken. They're built differently, and understanding that difference is the first step to protecting what you've built. Your move is simple. Trust your instincts. Document patterns. Maintain distance. Protect your peace. Because in the war between clarity and comfort, clarity always wins. And you just chose clarity. Now act accordingly.